Hello and welcome, fellow awesomeologists, to Awesomeology. I'm Sue.
And I'm Ben, and in this episode, we'll explore how empathy should be a major part of your marketing strategy.
Wah, wah, wah. I mean, in a positive way.
Yeah.
But when I say that, it sounds so cynical
Yeah.
to think about empathy, which is a human, lovely emotion, and think about that as being an important facet of marketing strategy. But this is not just a cool gimmick we're going to talk about. This is not just pretend empathy, pretending like you care, right?
Well, you wrote this script, so you already know I'm going to say yes, so let's jump right in.
Okay, so Ben and I were fortunate enough to be alumni of an innovation program through the Filing Research Institute. If you are not familiar, because you are not a credit union peep, it is a think and do tank that focuses on credit union strategy and helping credit union members. And we, as I said, we're very lucky to be able to be a part of a couple of innovation programs through Filing. So shout out to them for the first step for us to be able to create a model that captures our audience's most pressing needs. Ben,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
already know you're going to get asked this. Describe the model that we start with when we talk about empathy.
Yeah, so there is this whole methodology to the filing, I guess the filing method, right? And one of the first steps is creating an empathy map. And empathy maps aren't unique to this methodology or anything. Empathy maps are used in plenty of other places. But if you haven't seen one before, visualize the person that you're trying to solve a problem for at the center of a map or a sheet of paper or a whiteboard, whatever that looks like.
Circle. You want to get crazy?
Right. And then around that person, well, first you describe that person, and depending on what you're doing and what you're trying to solve for, maybe down to some intimate details, but sometimes I suppose you could probably keep it on a higher level and still get some good work done. And then after you describe who that person is, you write and bring ideas in around them that are all done in a way to answer the questions of like, what is this person thinking, feeling, seeing, doing? So like really putting yourself in the shoes of the person that you just described, walking a day in their life, a moment in their life, and even that might change depending on the problem you're trying to solve for. Literally writing down, here's this thing that this person experiences. They see this happening in their community. They have to do this thing to help their family, do this thing that, gets them by or whatever. And by doing this, it's easy to like sit back without structure and just say, I wonder what that person's thinking about, or if only I could walk a day in that person's shoes. And by doing that, you can have this nice little inner dialogue with yourself and probably do a decent job at understanding what somebody might be thinking, but you might miss the things that they have to do, or
Right.
You might understand the things that people are saying, the things that they're saying to their coworkers, to their community, to their family, but you might not fully think about the things that they're thinking, or the things that bring them anxiety, or whatever it might be. So by doing it in this way that's structured on this map and this pretty little drawing and everything, you really dig in quite deeper than you would if you did that more casual sit back, like, I wonder what they're thinking kind of approach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then off of that, I mean, now you have all of these statements, questions, ideas out around this person that you've grown to know and love so much, and you just want to solve every problem that they've ever had, right? And you can start to dive into the next steps of the process, which is, ideating, problem identification, getting to solutions eventually, right? But it does also, it's clearly very intentional that it starts with an empathy map. So you're solving a human problem for a human,
Right.
and keeping that human at the center of it throughout the process.
Yeah, and when we talk about, sort of identifying that person to whatever level the problem you're solving requires, I mean, we're talking demographics, we're talking specifics about, down to what is the makeup of their family, where do they live, what's their education, just to really hone in on this idea of a single person who we're going to hopefully be able to help. And I think probably the thing that I took the most from that whole experience of building an empathy map really for the first time was, our tendency in business is to think, what is this person hearing about our business? What do they think about our business? Blah, 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 blah. And when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, yes, those are important questions to ask yourself, but no, those are not the priority for that person.
Right.
So to be able to say, like, we did one, my group did one where we talked about someone who was definitely a mother. I can't remember if she was a single mother. Probably doesn't matter right now. Yeah. But the point is to look at that person's situation where we're talking about, we want to get down to what's a financial product, but this person, one of the insights we had is maybe thinking about why can't I be a better mom? So, you compare yourself. We know that everyone compares themselves to everyone else.
Yeah.
So there are all of these conflicts that even if they don't make sense, my personal opinion is, even if you're never going to make somebody feel like they're a good mom, but if you can understand, we're not their priority. They have all sorts of things going on that might be a higher priority. And number one, if we can solve a problem for them. Number two, if we can be sensitive and empathetic about those other things that are swirling around in their brain. And also number three, getting down to what are the other things we can do to, and this is already a teaser into what I do, which is thinking about how content and copy can speak to some of those other swirling thoughts and try and center someone as the subject of what we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's also informative and human,
yeah,
and not manipulative at all.
Right. Yeah. When like a pretty vivid memory that I have from doing it as part of the filing project, but honestly, really, I think anytime I've done it, an empathy map, is like I'm reminded every time of how hard it is to do that. Like, I suppose maybe some of it might just be like that feeling of like brainstorming churn, waiting for your mind to get going. And sometimes when the first idea is thrown out, then, they can really start to roll. And it's similar, once you're just waiting for someone to say like, well, here's the thing that I think they're probably doing or saying, then somebody else chips in their idea, and then, you can kind of start to roll. And I do think that it's been most effective to do it as a group, right? Because everybody brings their own biases and their own information into this activity, right? So to have that discussion happening at the same time of building this portrait of a person and trying to figure out who they are and what their problems might be, to have other people around the table contributing to that, checking that, everybody plays an important role in bringing this together in like the most true way that we can with the information that we have, but it didn't come easy. Like, I don't think it happens easily. If we just knew all of these things about people, we'd be constantly trying to like solve people's problems because we know everything about them, and we know that that's not how the world works, right? So okay, now that we know where we start with this empathy map, this beautiful empathy map that we created.
It is gorgeous in our minds.
What can you do with the insights you gain from empathy mapping? And I know you teased this just a little bit.
I did. Yeah. So you can do so much.
So much. Oh my
God. Was a really good conversation. Thanks. So we know, I think I sort of associate it with the innovation process, right? With finding a gap, finding a solution for a problem. But we talk about all of the time. And frankly, if you listen to this podcast and have not heard us say, understand your audience, know your audience, then you need to go back and listen to some of these other, because we've said it a million times. So it's about knowing your audience, and it's about knowing, who is the specific person that I'm talking to, because it is never, and here's me preaching to the choir, to you, it is never everybody. You can't talk to everybody.
Right.
So that specific person. And yes, sometimes, and I think this is a thing that marketers struggle with, the people that have to work with marketers struggle with, sometimes that means you're eliminating people, right?
Right.
Not in a bad way, but you're saying, so right now we're focused, this empathy map is a single mom, age 25, I don't know.
Has student loan debt,
whatever. So no, we're not going to talk about World War II documentaries, because it's not Sue's dad that we're talking to here.
That's not a real life example or anything.
It's much more Gunsmoke for him. It's more, we're not going to, there will be no Marshall Dillon in what we're doing. So it is, I think people, maybe I'm picking on the credit union industry a little bit, but we have these big hearts. People around us have these big hearts. We say, we don't want to leave anyone out. We're not leaving people out if, for the purposes of what we're doing, we're saying we are talking about, and in our group, I imagine it was similar for you, we named them. Right. So we are talking about Yolanda, young mom.
Yeah.
And this is the person we're talking about right now, and this is who we're solving for, because ultimately our job is to solve human problems.
Right.
And even exclamation as a business to business. Businesses are made up of people, so our job is still to solve human problems.
Right.
So there's that, the problem solving, the innovation side of it. And for me, as a content person, there is also that, placing myself alongside them, as far as in a piece of content, if I am writing it for young mom Yolanda, with her in mind, then the piece of content I'm writing changes. Mm-hmm. And it changes the flavor, it changes the things I'm saying. And, a particular style I use, which I would suggest everyone use, to the greatest extent you can, and use it mindfully, is to think about bringing real life situations, whether you do it for the sake of humor, whether you do it for the sake of storytelling, but bringing those real life situations into what you're doing to show, you can show a lot of things with it, really. You can show that either I just understand who you are as a person, I understand your experience, and therefore here's this other piece of information. I can show I understand your experience and I have a direct connection that I can give you to help you with that experience. So there's a lot you can do with it. Or you can just make a throwaway joke, which I'm fond of doing, which that has its own strategy behind it too. That is the human touch. That is saying, like, I am creating this piece of content to be colloquially appropriate. Mm-hmm. Now, when you use phrases like colloquially appropriate, you're not being colloquially appropriate. So instead, I will bring it into, a side comment, a parentheses, set of ellipses, just those extra stray little thoughts that say, like, I am looking you straight in the eye. I am understanding your human experience. This is for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And from a, marketing perspective, I mean, you're talking about a very specific example of like content and writing and stuff, but it applies everywhere.
Right.
I mean, thinking of even to like ad placement, this can help you help inform you like where these people might be and where you need to be so that they
Right.
receive your message. Or, if we're talking about the design of something, being familiar with that one person, with Yolanda Young Mom, you have an idea of what might be appealing to that person based on all the work that you did to really get
Right.
to know them, So that's a really cool, as difficult as it might be and as much work as it might be to, do it, like there's reward, right?
Right.
So,
Right. And I think I'm glad you brought it up because it's always important to remind ourselves that nothing in marketing exists in a vacuum.
right.
So everything, really, really well-formed, deep and wide strategy means that I'm thinking about, even if I am focused on content and I'm doing a blog, blah, 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 whatever nobody knows. You know what? Frankly, nobody knows what I do. But
It's magic.
I have to, my job is to also be thinking, how does this thing I'm doing right now connect to other things that we're doing?
Right.
Is there a connection that already exists organically that I'm going to send you from this ad to this blog? Or do I need to create a connection, which means I should be thinking about taking this blog, blowing it up, and putting that information in other places because I think it's valuable enough to get it out in front of you.
Yeah.
And then this holistic experience, I have a feeling I'm getting off. I am diverging a little.
It's okay because I have a question that is totally going to diverge us a little bit.
Okay, good. So thinking about this big idea that everything you do is of a piece, right? So you can't, thinking about your brand, thinking about what your brand looks like every single place it goes and the people who support it. That's really what I mean in a meta way, that none of it exists in a vacuum. So I have to, if I think Yolanda Young Mom is an important person for me to talk to for this particular project, I also should be thinking, what have we put out that would tend to push Yolanda Young Mom away? Mm-hmm. And is she important enough to me that I need to make that stuff, I need to downplay it, make it go away? Or can those two things live side by side without creating conflict for each other? Yeah. So to simplify that, because I know that sometimes I just say things and Ben and I understand each other and other people maybe don't understand me. To say like, we're talking about Yolanda Young Mom and we're saying to Yolanda Young Mom that young moms are important to us. And super simple example, if you have another ad that says, we don't care about young moms.
Yeah.
Those two things conflict. And you need to really think about what's going to happen if Yolanda sees both of those things in the wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
And be intelligent about it.
Yeah. So the question I was going to ask, and I think you've already started to answer it, is what does one say to somebody that might ask, okay, so you've done this empathy map, you're solving for Yolanda. Isn't that too focused? Are you too worried about this one person? I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't be everything to everyone, but you also can't focus on this one person, which I know this person would be a real butthead to ask this question.
You should, I would say you should leave.
Yeah. But, and somebody may legitimately ask the question though about, like focus. Is this too focused? And, are we going to have to do this for every single kind of person that we might ever serve? And that's, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a lot of people on the planet and that's very,
right.
They're all very different and stuff. So what do you say to somebody that asks, if I just asked a question, asks that question?
What I say is the same thing I say about everything, which is it depends. What is your business? Now, Yolanda Young Mom, if you have a business that sells strollers, I don't know, like burp rags, whatever. Formula. If you have a business that is targeted to Yolanda Young Mom, and you are asking me, am I not hurting Sue's dad's feelings because I am not focusing on what he needs, then I would tell you, you know what? Don't worry about my dad. He's not in your demographic, and it's all fine. Could he come into your store? Is there a chance that there's a life situation where he wants the product you have? Yep. So then what you need to think about is not putting out an ad that says, we hate Sue's dad.
Yeah.
He's a jerk. So that's a hyper-focused example. And when we talk about industries where it could be, we need to be open to a diverse set of people, then you think to yourself, you strategize with your team, you have a really honest conversation of for a conversation about empathy, I feel weird about what I'm about to say, but you have a conversation that says, who's going to make us money? Who will sustain us over the next X number of years?
Right.
And if that is a group of people, if that is Yolanda, young mom, Bobby, young businessman, I'm not going to try and come up with any other names that have alliteration. You get the idea.
I get you.
If it's 5 different sort of types of people, cool. You know who your people are. These are the people that are going to sustain you. You still need to be good to Oliver, old businessman.
Yeah. Nice. Nicely done.
Thank you. You can't, I was about to say you can't block them out of your business, but you know what? Gall darn it. You can if you want to.
Yeah, right.
If you said, you know what, dude, you're not part of our demographic, and we aren't going to put, you're welcome here. You're welcome to use our services, but we're not putting money into you. That's your prerogative. And in sometimes that's the right decision to say we're not sustaining. I think particularly in the credit union industry, I assume every industry, we have old tech and new tech, and we have some old tech that we kind of pull along because we have people that we know have been using it forever, and that's what they're used to. And if we said you have to stop using our phone banking and use online banking, that they would, we know that exists.
Right.
And it is sometimes appropriate, although probably very hard, to say, we're not going to invest in you anymore.
Yeah.
And you are always welcome to use what we have, but we're not investing money in keeping you on old tech, using old, ways, because that's a money suck.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, and especially in a credit union sort of structure where, we're using members' dollars for all of these things, right? We do need to be good stewards of that. And, to keep some old tech around that keeps a small group of people happy just may not be the best use of resources, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
And, and also, when we talk about age, which I think it's a pretty common sort of delineator for marketers to think about age or generation.
Right.
It's important that we think about more about habit and proclivity.
Yeah, behavior was the word I was going to use. Yeah.
Than age. I don't know why I went to the word proclivity because I thought that was the fanciest word I could think of at the moment. Because as soon as you decide that Oliver, old businessman, won't use online banking, as soon as you convince yourself of that, then you're doing a disservice to those members.
Yeah.
You are closing off an opportunity for people.
Right.
In the example I always love to throw out when people say, older people, they're not going to use these things. We're never going to get them. My aunt is 87, and she does bookkeeping for her son's business and has done it all online since online bookkeeping has existed.
Yeah.
Now, it does mean that my brother has to provide IT support for her monthly.
Right.
And that's fine.
Sounds like a fair trade-off to me.
So we can't, I think I'm coming to a point here. even as we think about that hyper-focused group of people, we also can't assume that no one else is going to react to that message for those people.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And on the topic of empathy, I'm almost done, I swear. One of the things I think about really often is, and thinking in the sort of in the DEI space, but I think it applies to this exact same thing. I think people ultimately want to be connected to people, and what they like to see is examples of other people being treated well. So if we did something, if we promoted something that was for a relatively small group of people, there is a certain segment of the population that's going to be like, you know what, that's not me, but that's cool. I like what they're doing for that group of people. Yeah. And that expands what that audience is and expands the power of that message.
Right.
And especially if it's not a one-off thing and if you're doing it genuinely.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Well done. Good answer.
I'm going to take a deep breath. As we said at the top, before I went all the way into the bushes, we both participated in innovation programs with Filing, where we were able to take these kinds of insights and design projects meant to fill the gaps in the consumer experience. And the whole point was to look at it through the eyes of that consumer.
Right.
That is a pretty specific use case. So how can a business who is just hearing this today apply that logic to their day-to-day if they're not going to call Filing and be like, I want to be in your program?
Yeah.
What can they do today with that?
Well, I think, first off, and this maybe feels a little too big, but it is the first thing that comes to mind, is like, if you're not innovating and you're not using this to help you innovate and think about what might be next for your organization or for even like a product or a certain group of people, like start now, do that now, definitely. That, may be bigger than the day-to-day. It might be bigger than a moment or a certain group of people or a certain product or something, but start thinking big. But as far as the day-to-day goes, I mean, goodness gracious, like have a notebook next to your computer, and every time that you question if what you're doing is truly impactful to the people that you think you're helping, at any time, like make a note of the thing that you're doing, and then there you go. You got a whole bunch of ideas for identifying a person that you might want to empathy map, and then possibly innovating on that small step in the process or that project that you're working on or that campaign, if you're in marketing, whatever. So, I think from a day-to-day standpoint, like the possibilities are endless. And yeah, you can't do an empathy map for every task during your day or anything. How is the person that I butted in front of line in the bathroom feeling? We don't have time for that. But no, I think I can't imagine. I like seriously can't think of a career or a job where you wouldn't be able to identify I don't need to give a number, a good amount of opportunities during the day to pause and consider, like, how does this truly help the person that I'm, that's going to benefit from the thing that I'm doing, and can this be done better? Can it be done a different way? Can it be improved? Do we need to create something totally new? And I think of, I won't go into a whole bunch of examples, but I will maybe touch on a couple just to help make the point, I think.
We hope it helps.
Yeah, we hope. But, this sort of thinking and empathy mapping and innovation and stuff like that maybe is easier to make a connection to somebody who's like in product development or a designer or, somebody that's, maybe more closely connected to the creation of something. But this can totally be applied to somebody that's doing, a repetitive back office task or something that in like almost no way but an abstract one or a loose connection in almost no way directly helps the end client or customer person, the human, right? But it's almost a guarantee that whatever they're doing is helping their coworker or a group of coworkers, or maybe a segment of their client base or something that then does make its way down to directly impacting that person that we've identified. You know what I mean? So even if there's some perception, like if you're listening to this and thinking we're full of crap,
Number one, you're right.
yeah, right.
But
Well, you are right about
we
that.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, we're right on this point, but we are also full of crap.
Right. And you're thinking like, yeah, this just, I don't know how this could be useful to me. Like we're telling you, you're probably wrong, right? Like
Right.
there is a place for this in like any task and any role in anyone's day to day.
Right.
When to use it, when to activate it, that might be the more challenging question, right? Like how do you prioritize the things that you're doing or the projects that you're working on to say, okay, like I'm going to pause and I'm going to implement this methodology and I'm going to do an empathy map and, go from there. Because you can't do it for everything, right?
Right.
And maybe the answers to those questions are driven by pain points that have already been identified. Like we know that this thing is painful. We can do this better. How is that impacting people? And then go. Or maybe it's based on profit, right? Like there's this area of the business that we know is really profitable. How do we squeeze the most out of that? Or there's this area of the business that we think should be profitable and it's not. What's going on there? Well, let's dive into that process a bit and start with the human side of it, which is
Right.
where the empathy side of things is it's crucial. It's absolutely crucial.
Yeah. I want to tell you, you done blowed my mind.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Because listen, I hate to
Usually goes the other way around.
brag about my bona fides, but I am Greenbelt certified,
Wow.
as you know, in process improvement. And I literally never thought about the connection between empathy mapping. So what I have thought about is we have to, and this is a thing that I have shouted in your face multiple times, you have to think about the whole process. You have to think upstream and downstream and everything that's happening and how it's affecting people. But I have never really put that connection of like, no, when I say think about how it's affecting people, think in an empathetic way. Think, what are the other stressors that might be outside of this process, or what is the training that you're going counter to when you try and force them into the process, or whatever those things are, upstream and downstream. Thinking about it from an empathy standpoint is probably the key to making all of that work.
Yeah.
And if you are in process improvement, and you're looking at a process, definitely take a pause and say, who are the people from beginning to end involved in this, and how can we, to the greatest extent possible, make sure everyone's happy,
Right.
content,
Right.
all to the extent that we're getting the best at the end of the process.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of the end of the process, like the outcome here of thinking with empathy, leading with empathy, maybe implementing practices like this into the way that you're doing things, is an outcome is exceeding expectations, right?
Right.
And again, that might be for a coworker exceeding their expectations. It might be for Yolanda Young Mom. It might be for the exact person that you're trying to
Right.
solve this problem for. And we know that like exceeding expectations is what keeps businesses in business. It's what keeps, makes growth happen. Like satisfaction isn't enough,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And for my money, we have never had a more fertile environment to exceed expectations.
Right.
And I've been saying that for a lot of years, but I think with the state of the world, with
Yeah.
what we've all been through in the last 2-3 years,
Yeah.
it is absolutely the time to think, what can we do right now that exceeds what people expect from us, and then because it's going to be easy, it's going to be low hanging fruit,
Right.
right? And then you can start at that low-hanging fruit and grow it from there.
Yeah.
Okay, now people expect us to open the door when we say on the sign that we're going to open the door.
Yeah.
What's the next thing we can do?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it becomes a habit, it becomes what people expect of you, and that at the end of the day, that is what anyone's customers want.
Yeah.
They want reliability. They want expectations exceeded. And then step 4, everybody makes money.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we're getting to the point of closing the loop here on empathy, right? I think that one byproduct of everything that we've been talking about that I think is helpful to at least verbalize is that, like, once you start doing this and implementing it into how you create things, how you think, how you do your job, and I guess the point I'm getting to is how you live your life. An awesome byproduct is that empathy can become like ingrained in who you are as a person, how you think about other people, and not only just like with your coworkers, but with your family and stuff too. You know, so when something happens that catches you off guard, instead of saying, "What were they thinking?" you say, "What were they thinking?"
Right.
You know, and
Right.
you know, you get into the person's brain as best as you can, and you put yourself in their shoes, and instead of, you know, rushing to a quick judgment or something, you maybe put yourself inside someone's mind and heart and think about how they could be affected by things you don't even know about, and maybe that changes the way that you react to a situation, or you react to them, or whatever, you know. So
Right.
it's
Right.
a pretty sweet outcome of thinking this way professionally. It probably is a pretty big personal advancement too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And not to fluff your ego, but that is 100% a thing I rely on you for when I have like lost my mind, to be the person to say, well, okay, so let's not assume that person is inherently evil.
Yeah.
Okay, what if they are
Once in a while, I'll go down that road
be
with
like,
you.
yes, no, that
I'm human
person,
too.
the devil.
You're right. They are the devil.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's a great point to think, when you start to think about everything through the lens of what does that person need,
Yeah.
it opens up. I think it makes a lot of things you do in business and personally easier.
Right. For sure. Yeah. Well, let's just keep this train going. I think by doing that, and, you know, flexing or strengthening that muscle, right, you also gain this skill of being able to tell people what you were thinking, or, you know, tell people what you need, you know, and so it's just like these little steps that kind of create healthy relationships, healthy communication, and so we can just keep the devil out of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Not today, Satan.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll have lots of goodies to share about empathy, and maybe to get people going on this in the links and all that stuff, which we'll talk about when we wrap up. But before we wrap up, let's dive into our Something Awesome segment, where we share a recommendation for things that happen to us that are awesome, great, and we just have to tell. So I am going to share, I'll share with Sue, who will then share a link to a super cool article that, I don't know, it's mind-blowing to me. I still don't know if I can honestly wrap my head around it, but what it's about is the James Webb Telescope, which was launched in the later part of 2021 and is now sending us back amazing images of the universe. And so I did the thing where I saw like a social media headline about this and just kind of kept scrolling by it. And then for some reason it popped back in my brain and thought, oh my God, that's kind of amazing. I need to figure this out. And the headline was something like X number of galaxies in the size of a grain of sand. And I was like, wait, okay, so what does this mean? Are we going like Men in Black, where we're like reversing?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So people that know Men in Black will get the reference.
Know that
there,
the galaxy is in Orion's collar.
Exactly.
Right.
So upon doing a bit of Googling and figuring out what they were talking about, there's an image of, I should have had the exact number, but I mean, it's hundreds of galaxies. So galaxies, which contain billions or trillions, whatever, of stars and planets and all the other galactic goodness, right? And so the James Webb telescope is incredibly powerful, can see super far into the universe. And this picture that shows all of these galaxies, to put it into scale, if you were on an ocean or on a beach and you picked up one grain of sand, which sounds really hard to do actually, and held it between your fingers and held it out at arm's length, the grain of sand would be the size of that picture. So like, you know, I mean, and then like put that up against the size of our sky, you know, and just to, like, as I'm saying it, like I can't wrap my head around like the vastness, you know what I mean? And it makes you feel incredibly small, you know, like compared to the rest of the universe, the rest of humanity. And I guess that's, you know, I guess the thing that I think is beautiful about it is like when you start to scale it back from the vastness of the universe to the vastness of our planet to the size of our communities, the size of our families, and bring it back to yourself. Like, I mean, you can't help but feel like this really, really small part in this huge system. And that might be daunting on one side, but also like on the other side, I think it's incredibly powerful to know how like we as a single human being can provide huge influence on the people around us, on our communities around us, and you know, at the end of the day, maybe influence a whole planet. But to keep that in perspective of where the planet is in the in that whole vastness, you know what I mean? It's interesting how it's both like empowering and also allows you to like let things roll off your back because you're just this one person in this
Just like a part of that piece
big system
of sand.
Yeah. So
Yeah. As you were talking, I was trying to Google. That's why I picked up my phone. I'm not like catching up on my text. That'd be pretty rude. But it makes me think of that Einstein quote. And if I could get, for those of you who don't know, we record in the basement. So getting good quality Wi-Fi can be a challenge.
the Wi-Fi is tough in the basement.
Yeah. I want to find a quote from Einstein that made me think of. That happened to pop up in my Facebook feed. Here it is. Wait. Okay. Once you can accept the universe as matter expanding into nothing, that is something. Wearing stripes with plaid pants comes easy.
Yes. Right?
So the vastness, the enormity of all of that of the universe makes you kind of go, well, you know what? I dropped my Coke today. And
Right.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose the danger or the slippery slope is maybe falling into a place of like with no hope or something. Right?
Or total chaos.
Yeah,
Nothing
total
matters.
chaos.
Woo!
Yeah, nothing matters. Doesn't matter. We're just part of this deep, ever expanding nothingness. Yeah, that would be a dark place to go, I suppose. But let's stick to the warm and cozy side. Go check out that picture. Even like the photo of the galaxies is just absolutely amazing. It's super cool.
And feel free to wear plaid and stripes.
Right. Yeah.
If that's what you got to do.
Yeah, for sure. Love it.
Okay. So my something awesome. I am still kind of like, I'm still getting over the rush of this thing. It's an experience we had from a company. It's a company. It's a group of actors. They do this thing called the Dinner Detective. It is a murder mystery dinner, which we went in Green Bay. It was at the Hyatt. You do like, convention chicken. It's fine. It's a good meal.
Yeah.
But the experience, it's a live experience in the conference room area where everyone's seated down to dinner, and they have actors, somebody gets murdered, Some detectives come in. I think they're doing improv. I don't know. I hope they're doing. Yes.
Yeah.
They're improving. They bring people out of the audience. It was funny. It was scary while you sat there wondering if they're going to pick on you out of the audience. They did pick me out of the audience.
Oh no.
And it was so funny to me because the pretense that they picked me out of the audience was the one detective guy comes in and says, once you get so far into an investigation, you have to have a lineup. So we're going to get a lineup. And it was like me, 5'4", brown hair, a guy, 6'2", blonde hair, another woman, probably 5'11", long blonde hair. And they stand us all up together, and I turn to the guy, I'm like, you can't hardly tell us apart. That's And the guy playing the detective goes, exactly. And that's why we have to do it. So we had to go through these things where we had to do an evil laugh. We had to show how we sneak. And then we had to pretend to stab someone because the murder victim was stabbed.
Wow. You had to do all this in front of the audience.
In front,
Oh
and
my
you're
God.
like right center in the room, so everyone is like turned around so they can see you
Yeah. Oh my
do
goodness.
that. Yeah. So highly recommend. And also they told you, so you could win. You could if you figured it out, you would get a prize.
Oh, nice.
But you could also get something to take with you if you just did a positive review. So I definitely did that, and I got a shot glass.
Nice.
But I don't know if I get extra points for shouting them out on this podcast. Probably not.
Probably not.
But this is my review. Highly recommend. I will add the link. And I think there are troops like this all over the country.
Okay.
So it was a really fun evening,
Yeah.
and you definitely should do it.
Super cool. The Dinner Detective.
The Dinner Detective.
Love it.
Yeah. So much fun. Speaking of links, we will have links. Oh, we got the links.
All the links.
You will be able to find them pretty much wherever you find this podcast. You can always go to our blog, exclamationqso.com/blog, and you'll see this episode, and you'll see the links that we share. And you can also find us on your favorite podcast app, and the links will be included there as well. If you head over to our blog, we always encourage people to go back and look at our other episodes or on your favorite podcast app. Smash that subscribe button. I don't think I've ever
Smash
said
it.
that, but now I just wanted to do that
Yeah, I like
today.
it.
Smash the subscribe button. Subscribe to us. We do this, if this is your first time listening, we do this monthly toward the end of every month.
Yep.
And we are hoping to grow that.
Yeah.
So please like, share, comment,
Yeah.
smash
Let
that
us-
subscribe button.
For real, let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want us to talk about or who you want to have on the show. And
Yeah, or if you want to be on the show.
We'll do our darndest. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
heck yes, you can be on the show. Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, friends, for tuning in. Thank you, Sue, for all your work putting together our episodes. You do such a nice job. We had a great discussion today. This is Sue and Ben, your self-proclaimed professors of awesomeology, reminding you that life's awesome if you make it awesome. We'll see you next time.